The Buck 119 is an excellent heavy hunting knife that crosses over very well into bushcraft. In my opinion, to keep in the true spirit of a Scandinavian grind knife, I believe you got to stay thin with that grind. When you get as thick as these heavy hunters that I've been reviewing for this series, Hunting Knives for Bushcraft, when you're getting spines as thick as this, you're getting into knives at that point with the Scandinavian grind that don't do much well, in my opinion, other than maybe split wood. They'll still shave wood in that, and the tips on those knives are plenty robust for about anything you're going to ever encounter. But as I said, how I roll with a system, and I usually have some sort of small saw and a larger chopping tool, whether it be a large knife, a hatchet, an axe. But I do want my knife to be able to do some food prep. I do want my knife to be able to slice well, and I want my knife to be able to sharpen easily in the field. And when we're talking these Scandinavian ground knives, we're talking very wide bevels. Furthermore, these hunting knives are very easy to sharpen out in the field, which you don't get with a wide bevel on a Scandinavian grind knife. So these knives like this, and there are others like them. I've reviewed several so far. They'll do all your food prep. They'll do your large game. They'll do your small game as well, really, if you're good enough with the knife and have some patience. And they'll also do most of your heavy campcraft. If they won't do your heavy campcraft for you, you probably have the wrong tool. This Buck 119 here will take down your ridge poles. It'll baton your kindling for you, and it'll also remove a splinter. It has a wonderful tip. What many people don't like about the Buck 119, or they claim that the disadvantage with the Buck 119 is that it has a delicate tip. Well, to me, that's one of the attributes. The Buck 119's tip, you could remove a sliver with this thing. It is phenomenal. Very, very nice tip. Now, of course, geometry determines the functionality of the heat treatment of the steel. And so the first thing that we're always going to look at whenever we're going to get a knife is, does the geometry suit what I'm doing in the woods? So if you find yourself doing a lot of heavy woodworking, i.e. Notches. Perhaps you don't have cordage with you, or you don't carry a lot, and you want to fit your pieces together with notches, things like that. These knives will still work fantastic for you. So above all, you're looking at the geometry, and the geometry of the Buck 119, as with the other heavy hunting knives that I've reviewed, is excellent. And because the heat treatment is very well, okay, Buck does an extraordinary job with heat treating their 420, and there are other steels too, as far as I'm concerned. You get a very aggressive cutting edge, which is very easy to touch up in the field, but it also is supported very well. I have yet to have any edge damage with this knife. And because we're talking about sharpening a small bevel, we're also talking about that if you have a diamond impregnated stone, like a DC4 or something like that, you won't wear through it as quick with these heavy hunting knives. I'm just making up a quick little notch here, just doing something while I'm discussing this knife. So, like I said, as with anything, you're going to look for the proper geometry to suit what you're doing. If the knife is made well, as this is, it'll do anything you're going to ask for it out here. The other thing that I really like about the Buck 119 is you can find it in about any store. All right, it's an extremely prolific knife in the United States and Canada. And that has tremendous advantages. One of them being, suppose your luggage gets lost on a hunting trip. You can go to a store in the nearby village or city, and you can find the exact knife, all right, that you use. So you don't have to familiarize yourself with a new knife, in the last minute, if you will, on any type of hunting trip. The other nice thing, too, about it is it really won't break the bank for the most part. This Buck 119 here has the Coca-Cola scales. I said Coca-Cola because diamond wood, and the brass. Being prolific like that is great. I mean, you can find this knife in a lot of hardware stores, pretty much any sporting goods store, Walmart. So with having a nice delicate tip like this, you really, really can do some very fine work. Netting needles, getting inside things, getting in between the ribs of game, making money cuts, puncturing all sorts of media. As I said, you could remove a splinter with the thing. Boring holes, you just got to be careful. You should never be in a hurry to bore a hole anyways. I don't know what life and death situation would revolve around you having to bore a hole rapidly. You just take your time with certain things. But this will cut your horseshoe fungus beautifully. You will see the difference when you start using a knife that has proper geometry. Learn to sharpen your knife. You won't have any issue whatsoever. You'll see that these knives are really, really fantastic. The Buck 119, too, because we have this little bird's beak down here, if you will, is great to sort of choke back, to maybe do some light chopping or light peeling of branches. And it holds it in your hand nicely, too. Cold, wet conditions, you've got a nice guard here to stop your hand from going onto the blade. But it's also close enough to do any work that you're going to need to do with your belt knife. Let's face it, for the most part, most of us aren't doing something so fine out here that it can't be done with your average belt knife. Now, there's a reason why this knife has virtually gone unchanged since the early 40s. When batoning this knife, it's excellent too in the fact that you get really nice deep cuts into your wood. It won't back you out. You don't have to chip away at it like you would maybe a Scandinavian ground knife. As I said, I don't want to lead anybody off into thinking that I do not have any use for Scandinavian ground knife, because I do like them. They do some things very nice. But for the most part, if I'm looking for a knife to go out in the woods, this here is the preferred style of blade that I like. I like the functionality of it, and I really, really enjoy the overall look of knives like this. So, as I'm stating here, these knives come in several different steels. 5160, S30V. Of course, this is 420. I know I stated in the other video I would love to see Buck come out with a 1095 version, just so this thing would be the ultimate well-rounded bushcraft knife where we could throw spark with flint. But it's not the end of the world. If it doesn't, because in my system, I have a pocket knife that throws it religiously with just about any rock I can find. So once again, thank you very much for watching. I will have more on this knife because this is a lot of people's favorite. The Buck 119 hunting knives for bushcraft. Thank you very much.